This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, if I can get a mover and a seconder to return to open council, please. Peter and Belinda. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hornbeam does hereby return to open council at 8:59 p.m. Those in favor? And that is carried. None opposed. Okay, so we have a bit of a wrap up of your presentation, Gary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can take control of the screen again, there's about 4 slides to finish up. Thank you. So we had presented your current rate structure, which is common to differentiate the charges based on different types of users, a single family home, its uses versus a restaurant or a hospital or a school. There's always these relationships. That's done in order to try and reflect in some, either through engineering standards or through some measurements, a reasonably equitable way of distributing the costs. Others, if you want to move towards equity, then there's an opportunity to install meters so that you can charge based on actual consumptions. And there's 3 different types of rates which are normally used. Nothing magical about them. One's called a constant rate, and it just means if you consume only 1 cubic meter in a year, you'd pay $1. If you pay use a million, you'd pay 1,000,000 times $1. So it's the same rate, not differentiated by consumption. These other 2 rates, increasing block means as you consume more, the rate goes up. And the decreasing, as you consume less, actually the rate goes down. So the increasing is used to encourage conservation. The decreasing quite often is to encourage larger plants that consume high amounts of water. So these are considerations if you move to metering, and about 85% of the municipalities in Ontario do metering. About 15%, similar to yourselves, don't use meters. If you were to move towards meters, obviously there's an installation cost. These are not only to purchase the meters, but then they actually have to be installed in homes, which means you need to, hire the assistance of plumbers and such to actually get inside the home in order to install the meters. So the costs quite often are in the range of about $1,000 to do that. Now, a municipality your size probably would go with what is called an AMR, which just stands for automatic read. And then basically you eliminate the operating costs for staff to go door to door in order to read each of these meters either on a monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly basis. So it's probably the best one to use. Now, but keep in mind, if we had that $500,000 in expenditures, you're going to increase the debt that you'd have to recover. So an annual expenditure of $35,000, for example. So it's something that can be achieved. It's good. It would add an extra cost in order to have that pure equity in between individual users. So it's something to be considered. Now, the last thing I wanted to point out, and I think I touched upon this with that Ontario Regulation 450-307. This is the one where I mentioned from the Safe Drinking Water Act, the province requires municipalities to file a financial document as part of getting their license to run the system. So from the rate study that we would do here, once it's approved by council, we would then take that information and translate it into the format that the province wants this reported on. So as I say, it's going from something which is more rate oriented or more cash payment oriented, and it translates it into more like an audited financial statement. So it's the way that the province wants it reported. They want, I guess, commonality amongst all these reports. To me, the rate study means a lot more because the common everyday person on the street can look at it and understand where the expenditures are going. But then I'm only an economist, I'm not an accountant. So where we will, the things that we would ultimately be asking for council's direction through this process. So once we complete the studies and such, is we presented a capital program, so that would need to be considered. The operating program, for the most part, is Aqua's cost for running the water and the wastewater system would have to be included in the rates. We will be coming back with some calculations on the rates for council to consider. And then ultimately, based on that, we'd be able to finalize that financial plan, which would then be submitted to the province. So that completes my presentation, Madam Mayor. I'm at your pleasure on if there's any further discussion or questions.
Okay, thank you so much. And I open up the floor now, Gary, for questions for Gary and the presentation. No further questions from council. Okay, I do have one. Go ahead, Melissa has a question. Go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, I just wanted to talk to Gary about our vacancy rebates that we provide to people or residents and multi-unit residents that when they go out of town or if they have one of their units empty, we usually don't charge them. However, it's come up in council discussion and with the administration numerous times, regardless if the resident or the business owner or whoever isn't using the water, we still have all those flat rates of the operation and the capital and the debt charge. So what's your recommendation how we would go about addressing that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a very good question. Most municipalities, if they're on a meter, they charge their metered rates are normally two parts. There's a fixed part, which is charged per month, whether you're down in Florida, so to speak, and you know your meter's not running. There's still a fixed monthly charge that they would impose, because when you come back from Florida, let's say, you expect that the municipalities maintain the system, so the treatment plant still runs effectively. You know, the water mains coming to your house are working properly. They've been cleaned, maintained, etc. So there normally is a charge, regardless of them going away and not actually using water. So I would probably say that charge is somewhere in the, depends on the municipality, depends on how they've done their rate structure, but I would assume somewhere in the range of 40 to 50% of their water bill would continue even though they're not consuming water.
Thank you.
Gary, just a follow-up question to that, because you were talking about metered rates. Do you know of any municipalities like ours where we're on a fixed rate structure where we have a fixed minimum rate? And then if they do want to, say, go to Florida for 6 months, and because currently we turn the water off and there's a charge for that, and then there's a charge for turning it back on.
Well, the municipalities I'm referring to do the same thing. They charge them to turn it off and turn it back on, and there's a certain charge that continues even though they're down in Florida. So that's no different than other municipalities. If right now it would appear that you're charging zero, I think there would be, I don't think it's unfair to potentially charge, maybe a 50% charge if you wanted to give some reduction. As I say, there's a sizable amount of the cost to, most of the municipalities' costs are fixed. They do not vary significant with water usage. So if half your residents went to Florida, your operating costs are not going to drop in half. The only thing that really changes is the cost associated with chemicals. So basically, when you're putting the, whatever your, like chlorine or whatever into the system to purify it, that would reduce, and your electrical cost will reduce, your hydro, because that's what's being pumped into the system. But you still need all the staff there. They still have to clean the pipes. They still have to maintain, do all the regular maintenance to the treatment facility, etc. So generally, the reduction in overall costs is only in the range of about 5%. So if you cut if half the people went to Florida, then you would see only about maybe 5% reduction, but only for those 3 months. So it would be marginal against the water bill. So that's the reality of the costs. Most of them are fixed. If you wanted to do a reduction down to 50%, then that's something which is more by policy, not by actual cost.
Okay, and just to follow up with that too then, just to clarify, so that was the reduction plus you're still shutting the water off and turning it back on with that charge as well. And then a further follow-up is, if you have, say, someone that's vacated their home and they've moved out of town and they're trying to sell, it would fall under those circumstances as well. They could turn their water off and have the reduced rate during that time period.
That's absolutely correct, Madam Mayor. If there would still be a charge going against the property. In all these other municipalities, there would still be a charge that would be monthly.
Okay, thank you for that. So, councillors, do you have any other questions? I just have one further question about the completion of the water financial plan for meeting the regulation. So how often is this, how long is this plan? And how often do we have to do that and update it?
Once again, a good question, Madam Mayor. You are required every 5 years to submit all of the paperwork to the province to get your license to run your water system. The financial plan goes out, it has to go out a minimum of 6 years. And you do not, even though budget expenditures may change, let's say if we said, gee, you're going to have a 2% increase next year and it becomes 2.5%, you don't have to refile the document. It's left to the judgment of either the treasurer or the person in charge of the water system to judge whether there's a significant enough event that you should redo the plan. But it's not mandatory, but it must be filed every 5 years.
Okay. And this regulation came into effect in 2007?
That's correct.
Okay, so up until, this is for staff, up until this point, Gail, has Aqua done this for us, or have we done this in-house?
No, we actually got Watson and Associates to do it in 2016. They did our current water financial plan. And before that, honestly, I don't know. It was before my time in the seat, so I'm not sure what was done before that.
So it was done in 2016 and
Yeah, so it's due for, well, our drinking water license is due this year. So this is triggering the need for a new water financial plan.
okay. So that old plan must be available to us. Is it on our website?
You know what? I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get you it if you would like to see it, if it's not there.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, is there any further questions from council? The only further question I have just on different operating programs, is there any way to judge or any documents out there to compare what it costs to run a facility like ours through operations?
Very, very difficult. I mean, you could ask somebody such as Aqua, or who their customers are, and maybe do a little bit of research to see how their costs are for the same service, but it's very difficult. One of the biggest problems is municipalities, their particular treatment systems can differ significantly in between municipalities. For water, for example, surface water is a different way of treating water, and there's probably 3 or 4, well, maybe 5 different types of treatment plants that a municipality might use. And which one they use, maybe you have very cold water, some of them have not so cold water to draw from, so it may influence which system you use. If you're in a river versus groundwater, these are all variables on the costs. So you'd have to find somebody, Madam Mayor, that's comparable to you, and then take a look at a similar type of treatment facility, really, in order to get a reasonable handle on the comparable costs.
Okay, thank you for that, Carrie. Is there any other further questions from council at this time? And Gail, for the considerations arising from this process, is there anything further that you need from council at this time that we're missing to carry on?
I don't think so, but Gary, I'll just ask you, when you come back with a document that you're going to provide for the public consultation portion, if you would have the sort of options for rate structure, options for metering, that type of thing, so people can sort of comment on that based on what you've heard here tonight, and then fine tune it once more to bring back for adoption. Does that sound fair?
Okay, perhaps you and I can explore what that means without having. I could talk about the different rate structures and such. I'm not sure if I can calculate a rate structure without having more information, such as water pumpage into the system, how much sewage comes down. So it's a little bit more advanced, but I could do something, but I'd need more information in order to get to that point.
Or if council's happy with the structure that you've provided tonight, we could do that and just work on the options of, like you say, how you're splitting it up, with whether you're metering and how that would affect the debt charges and things like that. Maybe a little bit of direction on that, perhaps.
I can provide that.
Okay, the only other part too is just understanding leak detection. I think that's huge, is capturing that and having some sort of understanding for the public. Is that something we can include with the water metering? Because that's my understanding is they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and through you, Madam Mayor, the type of system that I'm like meters that I would suggest, these automatic reads, it's almost like through the internet they communicate. So you could almost like during the night when people are sleeping, you could see how much volume is used by those homes and see whether there's that's how you detect the leaks. I mean, it's one of the ways of these automatic reads would allow you to do that. So I could make some commentary on the additional benefits that arise, but unless you have that, it's difficult to know what the the leakages are.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be beneficial, and just understanding, like, because if it's digitalized, then I'm thinking that it could run with a program that the program is following, like staff could slot in certain times and then it just reads it out. It's not that they have to manually do that either. It would be a program that would be set up to monitor our system.
I'm sure there's ways of programming these things. You're getting into outside my pay scale. I'm not a water meter operator, but I'm sure that I know that you can press the button, it'll read it. So that if you wanted to read it at 1 o'clock in the morning and then read it at 5, you could track how much usage was during that period when most often people are sleeping, but not everybody, but you can track it. You could do some type of exercise to track the potential leaks. Yep.
Okay. Okay, that would be my only, just so that the public is aware. I don't think they, like myself, they'd probably be in the same situation that you see this automatic reading monitor, and I wouldn't associate that with leaks or how it would help our community and how it would bring health to the overall system as well. So, okay, is there any further comments from council tonight? I don't see any, so thank you so much for your presentation tonight and being with us. And I think it's probably dark in your areas by now because I know it's getting dark up here. So I'll say goodbye and thank you so much for being with us.
Great. It was a pleasure, Madam Mayor. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of housekeeping items, council. If I can get a mover and a seconder for our confirmatory. Drago and Belinda. That's moved by Drago Stefanik, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that bylaw number 1861, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at their special meeting of council held on Wednesday, May 19th, 2021, be hereby read a first and second time and be considered read a third time and finally passed. Those in favor? And that is carried, none opposed. And finally, our closing resolution. If I get a mover and a seconder, please. Peter and Belinda. Moved by Peter Kistemaker, second by Belinda Kistemaker. Be it resolved that we do adjourn this special meeting of council held on Wednesday, May 19th, 2021 at 9:23 p.m. Those in favor? And that is carried. None opposed. Okay, council, thank you for sticking with us through all the ups and downs and crazy virtual challenges we had tonight. So take care, everyone.
Great job, staff. Thank you.